right. Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. Everybody will call this an emergency podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Gold, and we are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. Shouts to them. And again, I said this Saturday night. Tomorrow, my friend Patrick Day from the Aluminum Company will be out here at the house, and we will be discussing things. So if I use it, you should use it. All right, well, first day of free agency. Not really a lot of free agent signings, although I guess sort of indirectly, yes, wasn't an unrestricted free agent signing, but a signing. So, and a couple of signings, couple of long-term contracts given out by your Carolina Hurricanes. So let's get right to it. Plan here, 15, 20 minutes tops, and then we'll let you go about your, what is this, Tuesday night, your Tuesday night business. And just real quick to reset from what we talked about Saturday night, the end result, the last couple of lines that I said Saturday night was be patient. The roster, it's not a rebuild. It's not a reconstruction. It's more of a reimagining of what Carolina's got. It may take several months, might take all the way even into the start of the season. No joke, albeit one significant addition made today, and that's K'Andre Miller, formerly of the New York Rangers, now of the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, so we'll get to Miller in a second because that was a significant and the most significant, transaction they made today. They did, however, first thing we saw was they extended Logan Stankoven, 8-year contract, $6 million a year, kicks in at the start of next season, not this one. He's got one more year left on his entry-level deal, and that is a significant move by Carolina. The player they got in the Mikko Rantanen trade to Dallas, along with 2 first-round picks, which aided today. Stankoven showed up, looked very Hurricanes-y, played very Hurricanes-y, was effective in the postseason, and you know that Carolina loved what they saw, and they proved it today by $6 million a year over 8 years for a kid who's still 22. So, look, we can sit here all day long and talk about, man, that's a great contract. It's going to be awesome down the road, and it may be. I do remember sitting here 4 years ago saying the same thing about Andrei Svechnikov. No joke. After 3 years, Svechnikov signed an 8-year deal, paying him $7.75 a year, and we went, my gosh, that's going to be unbelievable value. Hasn't necessarily worked out that way yet, right? So we don't know how it's going to work out, but the first impressions we saw of Logan Stankoven, outstanding. Fits really well playing with the my two dads, as Seth Jarvis calls it. Fits in great. Loves to play that style. Talked to him today. Loves playing with Stahl and Martinook. But you also know this about Stankoven. He gets power play time. He's been very effective on the power play. He's been very effective in the middle of the ice for a guy who is generously listed at 5'9", really does play in between the hash marks, right? In between the circles. You'll love to see that. Because if you don't get inside, it's hard to score in the playoffs. Hard to score in the regular season too, but especially in the playoffs. You have to be able to get between the dots, and he can do that. And he gives Carolina forechecking and energy and defensive acumen and all of that. And again, at 22 years old, the future looks really bright. But we don't know what that contract, how it's going to look 3 years from now, because we don't know what kind of producer Logan Stankoven is going to be 3 years from now. I think it's fair to assume that he'll get better than it is today, but is he a 45-point scorer or a 55-point scorer? Because when you're starting to get, up around 55 and a little bit beyond, now we're talking about unbelievable value for $6 million a year. But But for right now, certainly the fit is great. You want to talk about value contract, Seth Jarvis contract is going to look stupid. It might already, based on where the cap is going, but it's going to look stupid in 2 years. And this coming up will be year 2 of the 8-year deal. 7 more years of Seth, 7 more years of Sebastian Aho, 9 more years of Logan Stankoven. And so that's great. And what they got back from Dallas, by the way, in the Stankoven trade, other than Stankoven, was first-round picks in 26 and I believe 28. And those will be late first-round picks. And I think the first one is top 10 protected. But Dallas isn't going to draft in the top 10. And Carolina's not going to be drafting in the top 10 over the next several years. So who cares about that? But the Hurricanes used the first of those Dallas first-round picks to help them get K'Andre Miller from the New York Rangers in a trade. Miller was basically rendered irrelevant by the Rangers when they went out and signed Vladislav Gavrikov as an unrestricted free agent from Los Angeles for a 7-year deal worth $7 million a year, which does beg the question, why would they sign an older player from outside of their organization as opposed to a 25-year-old, 6'5", 210-pound, also left shot defenseman from inside their organization? And I've been told by several people, this is not specific to this case, but you wonder about players who are allowed to leave their own organization, especially players who came up in that organization. So if I want to be completely fair to this entire situation, I mean, that's a red flag right away. But with that said, I've seen enough of K'Andre Miller to know that, and this was not a good year for him. This particular season, he did not cover himself in glory. And I would point out that the New York Rangers as a group did not. So there was a lot of bad to go around. And there was a lot of turmoil in New York. And there was turnover in New York. And I don't know what role K'Andre Miller played in it. I don't know what role his performance played in it, but he didn't have a good year. But with that said, I have watched K'Andre Miller play, and I think he is a very good player. And I remember the playoff series in 24. Not this past season, but the season before. And I thought Miller was easily the Rangers' best defenseman in the series, with Adam Fox and Jacob Trouba headhunting, and Lindgren and Schneider. I actually think also a young Nico Mikkola. I thought Miller was the Rangers' best defenseman. He's a great skater. He will throw his body around, although not maybe as much as people want him to, because, 6'5", 210. You want him to be a bruiser, and I wouldn't exactly call him a bruiser. I think I put a video out earlier today, maybe got a little out over my skis with the excitement of adding somebody 6'5", 210. But, I mean, numbers don't necessarily lie, although the hits statistic can be misleading. But over the last 4 full seasons, so excluding his first year where he didn't play a full year, it's averaged 142 hits per year. So you're basically talking about roughly 2 hits a game. Carolina doesn't have a lot of players who would fill that category. And there's only a handful of players with like 100 points and 100 hits. Actually, I'll get that stat that my guy Ben gave to me earlier today. But by and large, we are talking about a big, mobile athletic, puck-moving, high-caliber player. The drawback to the player is he is a left-shot defenseman. And if I'm not mistaken, so is Jacob Slavin. Right? So is Slavin. So is Alexander Nikishin. Right? And so is Shane Gostisbehere. And so is Mike Riley, who Carolina also signed, but he's a depth player. But Carolina has 7 NHL defensemen on the roster right now, and 5 of them are on the left side. So somebody's going to have to play the right unless Carolina's not done. All right, here was the stat I want to bring up, and then I want to mention something that Mike Buchagras, John Buchagras, I made him Mike. John Buchagras said on Twitter earlier tonight. There are 7 D-men in the NHL to have had 100-plus points, 400-plus hits, 300-plus blocked shots over the last 3 seasons. Keandre Miller, Rasmus Dahlin, Chris Letang, Mackenzie Weegar, Mo Seider, Darnell Nurse, and Neil Pionk. Most of those guys are good. They're not all amazing. I don't think Darnell Nurse is amazing. This version of Chris Letang isn't amazing. His son is pretty cool at the draft, but look, I shouldn't have to sell Keandre Miller. He's a really good player. 8 years, $7.5 million a year. And as it was pointed out to me by a friend, he makes more than Jacob Slavin. And while, yeah, he's not better than Jacob Slavin by any stretch of the imagination, he makes $1.1 million more than Slavin. I would simply say that if you go into this offseason and you have an internal cap of not paying a defenseman more than you're paying Jacob Slavin, unless we're talking about somebody who is a massive point compiler, and Keandre Miller is not that, then you're probably not doing everything you can to make your team better. So whether or not Jacob Slavin should be the highest paid defenseman on the Hurricanes is irrelevant to the conversation. Slavin is underpaid, $6.4 million a year for the best shutdown defenseman in the sport. That's underpaid. By the way, the guy in Florida who is, you could probably just slide a piece of paper in between Jacob Slavin and Gustav Forsling. Legit. He also is super underpaid. But then again, they have a lot of players who are severely underpaid. And Slavin has to pay state tax. Anyway, the numbers for Miller are really good. He has yet to really kick on offensively. He should be a better offensive player. But we will see, having played for, 2 or 3 different coaches in New York, right? He played for first David Quinn, and then who was it? Was it Gerard Gallant? And then was John Tortorella in there somewhere? And then why am I drawing a blank on his name? Peter Laviolette. Maybe this coaching staff with Rod Brindamore and Tim Gleason can unlock the best of Keandre Miller. And once again, 6'5", 210, mobile, athletic, physical, although not physical enough. Maybe I've just seen all the physical games that Keandre Miller has played. By the way, 6 points in 14 career games against the Hurricanes, so we won't have to worry about that at all. All right, so it brings this question to mind. We're almost out of time here. If we're putting together a top 4 of Carolina's blue line today, there are 2 ways to do it. One is kind of the boring way, and we'll simply go Slavin, and we'll put Sean Walker as the top playing with Slavin for right now. Miller Although, if we're not going to play Nikishin on the second pair, we could put Jacob Slavin up with, Jalen Chatfield up with Jacob Slavin, and that could be your top pair. Frankly, I would like that. Miller and Sean Walker. And then Alexander Nikishin and Shane Gostis pair. One of them will have to play as offside. My guess is you'll let Gostis pair play as offside and let Nikishin play on his natural side on a third pair, and Mike Riley would be the seventh defenseman. That's one way of doing it. The outside-the-box way of doing it would be Slavin and Keandre Miller. Again, I bring up a conversation I had with Brett Pesce a number of years ago after Pesce spent the lion's share of year one of the Rod Brindamore era playing on his offside, played the left side with Justin Falk, and it really worked. And Pesce told me that there are a ton of advantages defensively to playing your offside. And with Miller being an excellent athlete, I don't see any reason why he couldn't be good playing his offside. We'll see if he can do that. And I would say the same thing about Alexander Nikishin, or to an extent, even Shane Gostis pair. But I would be looking at something like that. Again, if you're thinking outside the box, because I think if you can unlock a better version of Keandre Miller and you pair him with Jacob Slavin, I mean, that could be pretty dynamite on your top pair. All right, now I want to just bring this up because I think there are a number of ways of looking at the deal. I was a little surprised that this went as deep as it did. I was surprised that the Hurricanes went 8 years with Miller on a contract. I thought, based on just the way I was thinking, which obviously I was wrong, that this would have been a shorter deal, lesser money on an average annual value, and give Miller a chance to hit the market again, like 4 years down the road. He should be he would have been, I believe, an unrestricted free agent after 2 more years. I think he had 2 years of of team control before he became a UFA. Regardless, I just thought it would be a shorter term deal and basically be there to allow Nikishin a little room to grow. And this is where I bring up the same trope I've been bringing up for a while now when it comes to prospects. Just because a guy is a great prospect doesn't mean he will ever become a great player. Again, I am not downplaying Carolina's prospects, but just a word of caution. Not every prospect connects. Sometimes you get to a point and you stop getting better. You just do. Sometimes the reason you became an elite prospect is because you were just physically more advanced than everybody else at a certain point. And then when the world catches up or the competition gets better night in and night out, the impact that you have in the game drops a little bit. Again, not saying that's going to happen here. But I think Alexander Nikishin is going to need time before he can perform at a top 4 NHL defenseman level. And if Carolina goes the boring route and they go Slavin and Chatfield, Miller and Walker on a second pair, and again, this is barring any other trades, this will allow Alexander Nikishin to play third pair minutes, third pair matchups, maybe get some power play time, yada, yada. And I think for the long term, that's probably the smart way to go. Even though we would all love Nikishin to step on the ice right away and just be great. boy, I hope that happens. I don't believe it's going to. I really don't. Down the road, should be a dynamite player. We think. I'll give you my own 2 cents about my one fear about Nikishin. And this is based on watching him in 4 playoff games? Was it 4 or 5 playoff games? I think it was 5 playoff games. 1 against Washington, I think 4 against Florida. He wasn't good against Washington. He had a couple of good moments in the 1 game he played against Washington. Then, remember, he didn't play. Scott Morrow played. Now Ranger Scott Morrow. Morrow played in games 1 and 2. And then Sean Walker came out of the lineup. We never saw Walker again. And Nikishin stayed in the lineup. He did play, I think it was game 4, where he was very good. He had good moments in game 3. Carolina wasn't good enough. He had good moments in game 3. Nikishin played really well in game 4, and then not well in game 5. So he played, I guess it was 4 playoff games. 1 was good, and 3 weren't. And I'm not going to judge him long term based on playing against the Florida Panthers 75% of the time. But it just shows you that when you step up in class, it's harder. It's just harder. And my only fear is that I didn't see elite skating ability from Nikishin. I don't know, is because he was just unsure of himself, which it could have been. But he didn't look quick enough to be elite to me. However, as I just said, a lot of it could have been simply, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So with confidence and experience, and by the way, training with the Hurricanes staff, led by Bill Berniston, my anticipation is that Nikishin will get quicker. But so what I'm saying is, I'm not sure what Nikishin's ceiling is. That's a bug. If you're watching on YouTube, and I appreciate you are, I just ate a bug. But I was told by someone who played with him that he would struggle early, but could be a top 4 player in the league. Okay. That doesn't mean that he's going to be great. It doesn't mean that he is going to not be great. I think we just have to remember that he is simply a prospect at this point, and there is going to be time needed for him to develop. As for what, did Carolina give up too much? The draft picks are the draft picks. Look, you gave up a very late first-round pick. That's what it's ultimately going to be, either yours or Dallas's, which, to make the joke before somebody else makes it, is really 2 seconds. So you gave up 2 seconds and another second, plus Scott Morrow, who was a second. And my feeling on Morrow is that, he's probably a third-pair defenseman down the line, maybe a power play specialist, but I did not see a ton that I loved from Morrow, either during the regular season or certainly not in the playoffs. But that doesn't mean he won't become. We know he can skate. He's not super fast. And we know he has, I think, good puck skills and I think a very good shot. But I just think that with the players Carolina's got coming in the system, especially on the right side, whether it's Joel Nystrom or Dominic Badinka or Charles Alexis Legault, or who knows, maybe one of the Russians, that Carolina had down the right side, maybe some future. I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Hurricanes aren't done reshaping their blue line. Really, I mean, it would not shock me at all to see Carolina make another move. They've got $18 million in cap room, and that's with 12 forwards, 7 defensemen, and 3 goaltenders on the roster right now. They've got $18 million in cap room. All right, real quick. Caden Primo, the goalie that they acquired from Montreal, and it's a full, the circle of life moment. Caden Primo's father, former Hurricanes captain Keith Primo, who was traded in a contract dispute to Philadelphia for Rod Brind'Amour. I'm sorry, I find that cute. And people are like, well, we needed a better goalie. He's a minor league goalie. He's got NHL experience. He's played, 50 games in the NHL. So Caden Primo will go to Chicago. He will play for the Wolves. I think he's on an NHL contract, which the Hurricanes signed him to, so it would be easier to slip him through waivers. Because I don't think there's a team out there that's going to snap him up off of waivers and just hang on to him. So for me, they got themselves some goaltending depth in the minor leagues, and they may get more down the road. Who knows? I know they signed the Russian kid that they were rumored to sign. Not really a kid. I think he's 25 already. Who's played about 7 years of pro hockey. I know they signed him, and I think he's here and will likely end up also with Chicago. But we got a nice little rainstorm going on out here. So the Hurricanes added goaltending depth, which they needed to add. And tomorrow, maybe, and by the time some of you are listening to this, it'll already be Wednesday, the Hurricanes maybe will add Nick Ehlers through free agency. So Ehlers has been in the league 10 years. We're all very familiar with what Nick Ehlers is, right? He's about a 65-point-a-year guy. He's a lot like all of Carolina's other wingers in that he's not particularly huge. He's not particularly physical, but he's super skilled, very good skater, doesn't ignore his defensive responsibilities. That's good. But is also not necessarily a proven goal scorer in the playoffs. So I like Ehlers. I know the team likes Ehlers. Somebody asked me, I think might have been for Saturday. I don't know. I'm not sure when it was. Why wouldn't I? Because I said I would overpay for Aaron Ekblad, but I wouldn't overpay for Nick Ehlers. And they asked me why. And I said, because Nick Ehlers, while better than most of Carolina's other options, to me, Ehlers would be a second-line winger, whether you're playing on the left side of a second line with whoever on the right. I'm not going to go through lines right now. There's too many things going on. But he's better than whoever that would be in terms of offensive ability. But he is not a game changer. Whereas I was willing to overpay for an Aaron Ekblad because I thought Ekblad would be a significant upgrade over anybody Carolina could have put in that situation. And let's just slot K'Andre Miller there. Ekblad would have obviously been an upgrade over K'Andre Miller. And that's no slight to Miller. Ekblad, right shot, and a proven playoff performer. So Ehlers comes with some red flags. I don't know if Carolina will enter the bidding war or engage in that. I think they're going to make their case. They have been in contact with Ehlers. It might take a few days before he decides where he wants to go. Washington, Tampa, with no cap room. That'll be a state tax trick. And apparently, Colorado is interested in Nick Ehlers. And I think there was some talk about Toronto possibly being interested as well. Don't know. But Ehlers had talked about wanting a lower pressure situation. Maybe Carolina's that. I don't know. I don't know what that says because I don't think it's a lower pressure situation. There would be a lot expected of Ehlers offensively if he decided to come to the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, couple of quick questions, and then we'll go. And, of course, I said I was going to go 50 to 20 minutes, and we hit the 30-minute mark, so here we go. Is this it? No. No way this is it. Whether they sign Ehlers or make other deals, they've at least hit the salary floor, so that's good. So they don't have to make other acquisitions. But I do think we still haven't addressed the center position. The one question I would have is that, and I said this before, because right now it is a seller's market for everything. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not Nick Ehlers. And again, Ehlers isn't a center, so doesn't even, he's not even part of this conversation. I think Carolina could easily wait training camp into the start of the season before they changed the mix down the middle. We talked about it. I'm not trying to, beat up Jesperi Kotkaniemi, but it isn't working for him. It isn't working for the Hurricanes. He's simply one of those prospects that didn't develop. It's nobody's fault. Except maybe his own, but nobody to blame. Sometimes you just miss. And it happens. In fact, it probably happens about half the time. So there have been plenty of high draft picks that didn't pan out. And he is definitely on that list. Remember, he was the pick right after Andrei Svechnikov, who also might end up being on that list. So, the guy who was drafted after both of them, Brady Tkachuk. Exactly. See? All right. I believe that pretty much handles business. I am Adam Gold. This has been the Canes Corner podcast. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. We'll do this again as events warrant. Hopefully, events will warrant tomorrow, and we will jump on again with another free agent frenzy emergency Canes Corner podcast brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. And tomorrow night, if we get together again, I'll tell you how it went with my guy Patrick. All right, we'll see everybody very soon. Happy Keandre Miller Canada Day.